Today we are going to talk about conquering your greatest enemy. That's right, I've put together 3 simple steps that you can follow to do this. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, you might not think so once you figure out that your greatest enemy is you. But I'm sure you've heard that before, okay? We've all heard this saying, you are your greatest enemy. It's a bit cliche. But today we're going to take it a step further and go a bit deeper. And we're going to define who this enemy you is, why you are your greatest enemy, why you would want to conquer yourself, and how the heck you're going to go about doing that. So first of all, who is this enemy you? When I say your enemy you, I'm talking about that inner voice in your head, and we all know what I'm talking about. It's that voice that fills your head with negative thoughts, fear, doubt. This voice makes you anxious and stressed out. It's the voice that tells you that you're not good enough or that you don't have enough. And on top of that, it's the voice who tells you who you're supposed to be. It sets your expectations for you. And it tells you what you're supposed to do with your life. Plus, this is a busy voice. Plus, this voice also wants to plan and predict every little thing of your life. Now, who is this voice? What name does this voice go by? This voice name is ego. And mine is a female. So as I talk about ego today, I'm going to be using the female pronoun here. But the first step toward conquering your greatest enemy or your ego is to understand her. And then you'll actually see that you don't need to conquer her. What you actually want to do is to learn to work with her toward a common goal. And we'll get to more on that later. But first, let's talk about what ego really is all about anyways. So ego is basically helicopter mom. That's the easiest way to describe it. Her job is to protect you. Her job is to make sure that you survive. And she does this, one way she does this is by making sure you know who you're supposed to be, because that gives you the greatest chance of survival. So your ego is actually responsible for your identity. So she fills your head with doubt and worry, as we talked about. But the reason that she does this is not for any nefarious reason. She does it because when you're attempting something new or acting in a way that you're not supposed to, your ego sees that and says that might be dangerous and you might get hurt. So maybe you shouldn't try to do that because I want you to survive. And she's making this prediction of whether you're going to get hurt or not, or if it's a dangerous situation. She's making this prediction based on past experience, of course, but also she's doing it based on looking around at what others are doing. So she'll look at how others are surviving, and she'll say, hey, we should do X, because so-and-so's doing it that way, and they're doing a great job of surviving, and we want to survive the same way that they are. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that makes some sense on some level, but you're not so-and-so. So the problem is, what inevitably happens is you're going to be stressed out trying to be so-and-so when you can never be so-and-so. And so that's where you kind of get into a little battle with ego, trying to be who you are, and ego's telling you, no, this is how you should be to survive. But see, ego doesn't even realize that she's doing this, and so that's why I say she's a little bit misunderstood, and we don't really need to conquer her. We just need to understand this. So she doesn't realize that in order to grow and to be a confident person, you need to take chances, you need to be challenged, and yes, you need to get hurt a few times along the way. And she doesn't realize that by being overprotective, she's actually crippling you and keeping you from growing. Just like any other helicopter mom, they don't realize it either. They're just trying to do the best that they can, with the skills that they have. So her goal is to keep you safe because she loves you. And she wants you to survive, as I said. So if we keep that all in perspective, that alone will help us quiet that voice in our head, that voice that's filling us with self-doubt and worry and fear. So now that we understand ego a little bit, let's discuss 3 illusions that ego creates in our minds. So these illusions are actually what makes ego your greatest enemy. So first I said we were going to discuss who this you enemy is. That's ego. Why this enemy, you, is your greatest enemy. Well, this is why, because she creates illusions in your head. And these illusions are the reason that we want to conquer her, but again, we just want to compromise with her. We don't need to conquer her. And these illusions were presented by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he, according to his website, let me read this a minute so you get an idea of who he is. He is an internationally renowned author and speaker in the fields of self-development and spiritual growth. So there you go. He has passed now, but that's what he did do. So illusion number 1 is I am what I have. Well, of course you're not what you have, but we all fall into this trap a little bit, right? We all try to keep up with the Joneses to varying extents, some more than others. But really, we do this because we want to fit in. It's an instinct because we want to fit in. Fitting in is going to give us the best chance of surviving. Not only that, but we want to have a better chance of survival than everybody else. So we don't just want what the Joneses have. We want something better than what the Joneses have. And this is nothing to feel ashamed about. It's just a natural instinct. It's survival instinct. You're going to hear that word survival a lot here. But what we can do is recognize that it's only an instinct, and we don't have to listen to it. Alright, so the second illusion the ego creates in our heads is that I am what I do. Now this one I feel like is a little harder to separate from because although you are not what you do is actually a result of who you are and how you define yourself. So you can't be what you do, but it's a bit tougher to get past because that is how we define ourselves a lot because that's how others define us. You know, you think about when you meet someone, usually the first question they ask you is, what do you do? And it's kind of like they're saying, I need to know what you do so I can get a picture of who you are. So since that's how others typically define us, that is also how we define ourselves. The problem's going to come in when you can no longer do whatever it is that you do, and all of a sudden you're going to have an identity crisis because you're not going to know who the heck you are. So the most effective way to detach yourself from that feeling of, or that thought, or the illusion, is to break what you do, whatever that is, down into specific skills or traits or characteristics. So take me, for example. I could say I'm a writer. But I can break that down, and I can say, as a writer, I am a deliberate thinker, I'm an analyst, I'm a creator. So, say I can't write anymore for some reason, I can still transfer those skills of deliberate thinking and analyzing and creating. I can transfer those skills to something else without losing my identity. So that's how we can break that illusion, is breaking what we do down into smaller pieces. The third illusion is I am what other people think of me. How? You know, I understand we all fall into this trap too, but really, if you think about it, every single person you meet is going to have a different opinion of you. So how can you be what other people think of you? Because you can't be 1,000 different people. And it's a trap we fall into because we want to fit in, we want to have a good reputation, again, so we survive. But we do need to break free from this illusion, and the way to do that is we're going to have to accept this fact that you cannot change other people's opinions of you. And that's a hard one to come to grips with, but it really is true when you really stop to think of it, because other people's opinions are based on everything they've experienced in their life to that point. Everything they've witnessed, everything they've experienced, and it has very little to do with you. So you can't try to change other people's opinions, but what you can do is focus on being the kind of person that you would have a good opinion of. And that may help you break free from that illusion. Okay, so we've discussed who our enemy is, why we want to conquer them, why they're our enemy, why we want to conquer them. Ego. So now we need to talk about how we're going to go about conquering, or actually just compromising with our ego. So step number 1, well, first let me say this. So in the beginning I said that I had put together 3 simple steps to conquer your greatest enemy. And they are simple. However, they are not easy. This is going to be the hardest thing you ever do in your life, and I think it's probably something that I don't know. I mean, I'm not there yet. I'm 42, so I have a lot of life to go, hopefully. But I think this is something that you're going to deal with every day of your life for the rest of your life. I think that's just part of the process of life. But one thing that we can do, step number one, is to understand who ego is and what she's all about. So we've talked about that she's really just there to protect us. Step number two is to name your core values. And I say this a lot in my writing too because I think that naming your core values is really the starting point for all personal growth. Because if you don't know what your core values is, it's really hard to make any other decisions. and um, it, and it's really hard to experience any personal growth because knowing your core values just gives you a place to start, a good place to start from. And naming your core values is difficult, but luckily I can help you out with that. So I do have a questionnaire on the site, and there's a link to that in the narrative post. And I put together a questionnaire where you answer 5 questions, and I can help you identify what your core values are. And like I said, I think that's essential to personal growth. So please take advantage of that. All right, back to the steps. So that was step number 2, was naming core values. Step number 3 is to redefine yourself. So once you know what your core values are, you'll work on redefining yourself so that you know who you are. So that when ego starts talking to you and filling you with doubt and fear, you can say, "Thank you, ego, but I've got this." And the way that you're going to redefine yourself is by deliberately thinking about why you are not what you have, you are not what you do, and you are not what other people think of you. This will lead you to figure out who you really are, along with knowing what your core values are. Luckily, I have a worksheet for that. So go ahead and check that worksheet out. I'll help you walk through all those questions. So, like I said, it's simple, right? And of course it is. It's the hardest thing you're ever going to do, but it's also going to be the most valuable and fulfilling thing that you're ever going to do. And it's part of practicing deliberate thinking daily, which is exactly what our organization is here for. It's what I'm here for, to help you figure it out, to help me figure it out. We're figuring it out together. So please take advantage of the resources that I put together for you guys. And until next time, stay curious.